The number one job for a business developer, and this is a major head shift, isn't to close deals. It's not to close deals. It's to create a consistent stream of high quality introductions and referrals. That's the number one job, because if you do that, you have all the opportunity in the world. And if you just get your share, you'll do great. But the only way you get that consistent stream is to be a giver.
Welcome to the Impact Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Morris, and we have a returning guest today. Our first episode. If you haven't listened to it, go find it. Scott Messer, Impact Effect Podcast, because it's going to blow your mind. But today's episode is going to be a little bit different, because we're not going to talk about the most impactful moment. We're going to talk about something that feeds back to that first episode. We're going to dive into the mental, the mindset around sales, around, loving on yourself, around getting yourself in the right place. So that way you can do the sales. That way you can build the trust. That way you can focus on your clients, your prospects, and those that you want to positively impact. So I'm super excited to welcome back to the show, Scott Messer. Thanks for being here, brother.
It's great to be back, Jim. The first half was awesome.
Yeah, man, you crushed it, dude. I got my notes. I've been implementing. It's what a gift, man. So thank you for being here. So with the mental side, with that piece of the sales process, what have you found over the years? I mean, creating billions of dollars for clients, working and coaching so many people as an entrepreneur, growth coach, focused on sales leaders and sales teams. Like, let's dive right in, man. Tell me more.
Well, most people think sales is an external game. In reality, I believe it's an internal game. Everybody's dealing with anxiety, pressure, imposter syndrome, that's pretty popular, and all sorts of self-limiting beliefs. When in reality, most people do not realize that they have already won the game. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to make a presumption here. Your audience is US based predominantly. So they're likely citizens. They have everything that this country has to offer. They're probably reasonably educated, have a job, have a car, money in the bank, nice family life, hopefully healthy. And if they're not, they certainly have access to health care. So you've already won. The only question is, at the end, how big did you win? So you can let go of the concern, the pressure, and the anxiety. And this came to me a number of years ago when I was giving a talk at Wharton on one of their MBA classes, an adult group. A woman came up to me afterwards and said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure." She said, "I'm so anxious. I'm so stressed all the time." I said, "Well, where did you do your undergrad?" She said, "Stanford." I said, "Well, that's good." I said, "What was your first job?" She said, "I was with Bain Consulting." I said, "Well, that's very good." She said, "And then I went to Kellogg's." I said, "Okay. And now you're getting your Wharton MBA?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "You can relax now." I said, all you have to do is to continue doing what you've done that got you here, but you don't have to stress about it. And again, I can't tell you where you're going to be 10 years from now, but I can tell you it's going to be in a pretty damn good place. It was like, oh my God. And another example perhaps is oftentimes people would call me up and say, "Hey, can you talk to this person, this guy, this gal, they're out of work," whatever. So I would just ask them a couple of questions. First question is, how old are you? And it didn't matter what they said, 20 or 60, doesn't matter. I'm just trying to get it going, right? I said, "Okay, do you really need to work?" "Oh yeah, I gotta work." I said, "Okay, so you will work again, right?" "Oh yeah, I gotta work again." I said, "Well, since you're going to work again, how will you feel when that offer letter or text or email or phone call comes in that offers you that great job that you've been waiting for? I'm going to feel good. You're going to feel good. Come on, I'm going to feel great. Okay. Well, knowing that great feeling is coming, why are you feeling bad now? Oh, it's about getting people to look through things through a different lens. People are so internally focused that they're missing what's outside.
It's such a great perspective shift to realize and think back, right? We stay up here the whole time and we're future forward thinking and we've got to get and grab and do all these things. But when we just take it back internally and realize, what's coming up for me right now is like, when I had a major investment in a conference that I was doing several years ago. And, I thought the world was going to end, right? I had, $240,000 of my money on the line. My team had quit. I was struggling with some vendors, the agency that was doing the marketing. And all I could think about was the future problem that hasn't happened yet, right? And when I
Yeah.
started to realize that, man, I've been in situations where my back's been up against the wall. I've had to fight my way out and I didn't die, right? I'm here today in a place where
Yeah.
I can invest $240,000 in a one-day conference. There will be another time where I could do that or even do it bigger, right? And, I had reached out to a friend, Steve, and in my TED Talk, I talk about, you should find yourself a Steve who will remind you of those things in those moments where you're just all up here and it's negative and you're struggling through it. So as you were saying this, that perspective shift and how you do that for so many people and how people connect you to folks who have to shift the thought process and the internal trust within yourself, it just brought back that memory. So thank you for sharing that, man. It's so powerful.
There's always time to panic after it's over.
You're so
Okay.
right, dude. You're so right.
Ride to the sound of the guns. Don't ride away from them. Okay?
When it comes to the trust piece, can you tell me a little bit about trusting yourself and kind of how you've navigated that or how you've educated folks to move through those moments?
Sure. First of all, I'm older, and a lot of the mental game is phase of life. Let's be honest. In your 20s and 30s, maybe even your early 40s, you're trying to conquer the world, you're building, you're going. And now you're in your 40s and your 50s and you're thinking, well, I did good, but I'm probably not going to get where I want to go. When you get into your 60s, I just don't, can I ride this thing out? And in fact, talk about the mental game. Last week, had a call with someone and she switched jobs. She's got about a year and a half to go before she's going to retire. And she really doesn't like it. But she's going to hang in there. And I said, you know what? You remind me, Diane, of somebody who says, maybe a postal worker goes, I hate it here, but I can retire in another 11 years. And I go, what are you talking about? I said, you have 16 months. I said, you either step it up or go find something else, because if you just punch the clock for the next 16 months, it's going to affect your next 20 years when you retire. This is your last 16 months. You got to go and get it. And it was like, And then I said to her, I said, you're going to hate me for this. I said, but from now on, every time you see a mail truck, I want you to think about this. And you see mail trucks everywhere, right? But my work is unlocking and unblocking people's heads to turn the binoculars or telescope around. You're supposed to look through the small end to see magnify the big picture outside. Most people have it backwards. They're looking through the big end and seeing a small future. And that's where a lot of the problem lies. The other part of it, I think, is, or another part, not the other part, is that, again, getting back to being born in America, we have something called the Bill of Rights. And there's a salesperson's Bill of Rights. By the way, there's also a sales leader's Bill of Rights. Anybody wants it, just, I know you'll get my info at the end. I'm happy to send it along. But basically, you're entitled to collect decisions. You're entitled to earn a profit. You're entitled to have calls and emails returned in a timely manner. I mean, there's got to be a list of 25, and it's not an exhaustive list. Where people get screwed up is they're afraid to enforce their rights. If you will say the things that you're afraid to say, you will get a lot more than you will by pulling back on the reins.
So true, man.
There's a devil sitting on your shoulder when you're out selling saying, oh, that's a lot of money, or they won't pay that much. I really need this deal. Oh gosh, what else? Oh, I've got payroll tomorrow. It's an exhaustive list, right? I mean, do you want to add a few? We're going. I mean, you're an entrepreneur. You got a lot going. You know what I'm talking about, right?
And we could get stuck in it, right? It's like, we've got to do all these things, but how do you just move through one to the next one to the next one and really focus on it, right? And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs, they get overwhelmed, and it's like, all right, this week we're going to focus on this one. Next week we're going to focus on that one, and progress through it rather than feel like you've got to do all of them within the next hour and be the best of the best and continue to progress. So I think as you're saying that, it's like, yeah, a lot of this makes sense. A lot of it is kind of like, duh, right? One of those duh moments. But if you try to add 50 things without maybe shifting a couple or reducing a couple and then doing it over time, it's going to be much easier,
Absolutely. Look, do you know what your high value, high impact tasks and activities are? If you go through a day and at the end of the day say, I was so busy today, but I got nothing done, then I got to ask, what were you doing? You focus on those things. If you can knock out one or two big things by 10 in the morning, the rest of the day is bonus. It's just great. So we have to take control of our heads. You're a speaker, right? National speaker. Very nice. But tell me, when you walk out for the first minute or two or even 5, aren't you a little nervous?
Totally, man. Yeah. I want to show up and show out. I want everybody to feel connected to me, and I want to do a great job. So the nerves run and leading up.
Of course.
But once I get on that stage, it's like, all right, let's drop in. I've done it before. I know what people are going to feel, right? I've said the speech. I've practiced it. My magic number is 33 times in the mirror that week, right? So yeah, I've been there 100%.
Sure. The point here is that everybody in your audience is looking up at you as the expert. Your job is to not disabuse them of that notion.
Totally.
Okay, so again, stories I've got. So early on, I signed a big deal out in California over the phone. Nobody ever met me. And the headquarters was located in Philadelphia area where I live. So somebody said, you know what? The president needs to meet this guy. CEO needs to meet this guy. So I go there and I'm thinking on my way in, Scott, you've got the deal. Don't lose the deal. But, in my head, this big deal.
Yeah.
A little nervous. So I get there and the CEO says to me, first words out of his mouth, I usually don't get involved in deals this small. But since nobody met you, where did the problem lie?
In your head.
In my head. It's always in your head. Look, every sales methodology has a piece on relationship management, right? And most people think that relationship management is about the relationship between you and the person or people you're talking to. And certainly that is an important part of relationship management. But it's human nature. We're socialized. We know we're supposed to give a good handshake, all that kind of stuff. Okay. When I ask students, what's the most difficult part of relationship management? They always go to that. The most difficult part of relationship management is the relationship that we have with ourselves. And that's where the work has to be done. Look, again, phase of life. Nobody gets out alive. The hearse does not come with a luggage rack. All right. We are here to help our clients, help our prospects if we can. That's it. And to leave the place a little better than we did. And when you go in, I focused. And again, we do have to make sales. We do have to make money. We do have to do all the things we have to do. I'm not saying we don't. I'm just saying when you realize that you're mortal, when you realize that you need deals, but you don't need this deal, and in fact, you're probably not going to get this deal, it kind of sets you free to be a great listener and to genuinely convey, which builds trust with your prospects, that you're not there to close a deal. You're there to see if you're a good fit for each other and to figure it out. That's the way I put it. I'm here to figure it out. I don't know. Let's talk about what you're trying to do.
Look at it like that. It relieves the stress of going in and feeling the constraints or the constriction or the pressure to actually lock it in or close it, or I need this and this thing has to happen. But it's like, if you just walk in and go, I don't know how this is going to go. Let me show up as myself. Let me love on people. Let me make sure I'm a good fit. Let me figure it out. Rather than going in with this, I don't know, urge, this feeling.
Most people's vision of professionalism is sitting like this, putting out the radio voice. Okay. I don't know, all the stuff.
Perfect suit, freshly shined shoes.
Seriously, that's not it. Professionalism is, in fact, I go so far, Jim, I tell people, if it's okay with you, I will never ask you to buy my service. Get the look. I go, look, if it makes sense, I don't have to ask you. And if it doesn't make sense, there's nothing I could say to you. I'm here to figure it out.
What a great perspective.
Okay. And then you build your process and you take it from there, but it takes all the pressure off them. But more importantly, it takes all the pressure off of you.
I never thought of it around the internal pressure. I've always thought of that perspective around the pressure off of them. And when there's not pressure on you, and when you don't feel, discongruence internally, then you can show up yourself. You can be natural. You can flow. You can engage as you normally would, right? Like as if you're talking to a friend already, and you don't have that like icky, I got to say this, or beating yourself up that you didn't say that when you're talking to a friend. When you're talking to a friend, you're just being you,
There should be a lot of pressure on the buyer, on the prospect. However, the pressure should be internally generated because of the questions that you're asking them, because of the conversation that you're in. They should be dying. I mean, there's nothing better than when a prospect says to me, well, what's the next step? Or how do we get started? The dinner bell sound, right? Because I didn't ask him. I've had many people say to me, I kept waiting for you to ask me and you wouldn't do it. So I had to ask you.
When someone gets to that stage and that conversation starts to close or there's a pause, how do you move through that?
I'm not sure I understood your question.
So say that you and I are engaging and you talk about, everything, and then the conversation kind of slows to an end, and there's maybe that pause where they want you to ask or they want you to tell you. Do you just sit in that pause and wait for them to
Pretty
engage?
much. Now, oftentimes, and this is one for you, Jim, tip for you, tip for your audience. If you're in a conversation with someone and they're really leaning in and you think they've made a decision, you ready for a super hard, brutal close? I mean, this is painful. You'll hear the bones snap as you're twisting their arm, okay? You lean in and you say, can I ask you a funny question? You got to scrunch your forehead a little bit and look uncomfortable and tentative and say, based on your questions, have you already decided this is something you want to do, or are you still trying to figure it out? And you'd be amazed at how many times you go, no, I want to do this. To which you respond with, all right, let's take care of the paperwork. And if they say, because I don't want to leave you in a vulnerable position, thinking, no, I'm still trying to figure it out. You say, that's what I thought, but I just wasn't sure by some of the questions. So let's keep going. They never see it. They never see it.
Let's go. Let's go. I love it, man. Let's go.
But how many people have the confidence to look? When we communicate unconsciously. I mean, you and I are talking here and we open our mouths and the words come out. And we're just having a really natural flow here, right? Because we don't have to think about what we're going to say. Most business developers on a sales call are also speaking unconsciously, and they need to change from their current unconscious communication style to the guest-free selling Scott Messer unconscious communication style. And while you're working towards it, I mean, for your audience, for you, sign your name with your dominant hand and then sign your name with your opposite hand. It takes forever and it looks horrible. And that's just signing your name. Here's another one. Fold your arms like you would, and then fold them the other way. You can do it, but it feels uncomfortable. And then
I don't even think I can do it.
Over here. Right? Okay. How many times have you walked through a doorway? 1,000,000. Walk through a doorway backwards, not by the steps. My point is, these are hardwired, unconscious things that we do, and so is our speech and communication style. Your buyers don't know you. Your buyers are not thinking about you. They're only thinking about themselves. You don't have to worry about what they're thinking about you. If you met somebody for the first time, they didn't know who you were, and you did a false English accent, they wouldn't know that you weren't English. They wouldn't know. They're thinking about themselves. I mean, think about the worst sales call you were ever on. I mean, the worst one. In fact, here's another story. I had a client, and she was the executive director of a not-for-profit in New York. She got referred into a wealthy patron whom she had met 3 years before. So she calls me up and she goes, I got referred in. This woman said, it was the worst sales call I was ever on. It was summer. I was late. I broke a heel running in there. I was sweating. And she said, what should I do? I said, grab a pen, write this down. Send her an email saying that you met her 3 years ago. It was a terrible, you were terrible on the call. You had a run in your stocking, broke a heel, you were perspiring, and if she doesn't want to meet with you, you understand. But if she was interested, you'd send somebody else. I'm paraphrasing what I scripted for. And I said, and here's what you're going to get back. I remember you. You were lovely. I want to meet you. That'll never happen.
It's so true.
What do you
though.
think happened?
We get in our own heads, man.
Oh my God. Here's personal experience. So I had my 50th high school reunion a few years back. I told you I was old. And I said, do I want to go? I was such an idiot. I said all kinds of stupid things. I did dumb things. I was such a jerk. I said, and I forced myself to go. And what do you think everybody else had been thinking about
The
themselves?
same exact thing. Yeah.
Everybody was glad to see everybody. It was great. Nobody remembered any of that crap. I mean, look, these are rocks that we are carrying in our knapsacks. And we got to take those rocks and throw them to the ground, because when you have too many of them, you can't move. It's too heavy. No is as bad as it gets in sales. Have a good time. I liken sales to golf. Now, I rarely, every couple of years, kind of rarely play golf. So, of course, I'm terrible. But I always have a great time. Do you know why, Jim? Because I expect to hit a bad shot, and I'm rarely disappointed. And if I accidentally hit a good one, I'm thrilled. The people that hate golf are the people that expect to hit a good shot every time.
What a great analogy, man. Like,
And
that is so real, because someone who used to golf and care about the score, care about the shot, how you blasted it over the hole, or you came up 80 yards short on, and you're only, 100 yards away, right? Like, I used to be that person who just was so competitive and wanted to win and all that. And now, similar to you, I golf every couple of years, and it's the time of my life because I could care less about the outcome, right? I just want to have a good time, and I want to do it with good people. So to take that perspective and look at it from the business standpoint, all I want to do is meet good people, whether they work with me or not, whether I perform in the sales call or the sales meeting or not. There's still a relationship to be built. And if I can reduce that pressure on me, then I'm going to golf better. And funny enough, the last time I golfed was one of the best golfing outings I had, because I didn't care. And it wasn't that I didn't care about hanging with the people, or it's not that I didn't try, but I was relaxed, and I wasn't so tight and tense and stressed because I had to perform,
Yeah, there it is. Look, it's mental. It really is. And I don't know too much more to say about it, other than there's more good stuff ahead if you keep your head right, stay focused on the high value, high impact things in front of you. How can you not succeed if you're genuine in wanting to help your customers, your clients, your prospects? I will share one other thing, if I may, because we're probably getting close towards the end, which is I want to let everybody know that, number one, you are not a widget manufacturer company. You're not an accounting firm. You are not a marketer or an SEO firm. You are a sales organization who happens to do those things. Focus on your sales teams. I presume you do great work, okay? But if it doesn't move, there's no money coming in. And the second thing I think I'd like to share is that the number one job for a business developer, and this is a major head shift, isn't to close deals. It's not to close deals. It's to create a consistent stream of high quality introductions and referrals. That's the number one job, because if you do that, you have all the opportunity in the world. And if you just get your share, you'll do great. But the only way you get that consistent stream is to be a giver. Mic drop.
Let's go. Let's go. Scott, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you coming back on the show and this perspective, the internal, the mindset, taking out your own trash, right? And replenishing it with some of these perspectives is just so important through the process, and giving yourself some grace, like that woman that you shared with the broken heel, and really understanding that people aren't, judging you or, frustrated with some of the things that you may think they may be frustrated with, but you are frustrated with them internally yourself. I think it's just such a powerful perspective and gift that you've shared with myself and also our listeners. So I'm so grateful to have you on again, man. And you do some great work. You've got such a great track record, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Jim. It was a blast.